tender sweetness of a seasick crocodile, Mr. First try! Guys, it's a new dawn, it's a new day. It is in that tripod. Look at that configuration your girl has established. Greetings and salutations, beautiful humans. This is Amity Ravenclaw Elf, and I am back on my ridiculosity. Let's do this. Last video, I planted some seeds. I left some hints that I was maybe gonna do some videos about how I would adapt various books. This video specifically is gonna be about Twilight. How I would adapt the Twilight books into a TV series. I feel like a lot of the things that I have problems with in Twilight are gonna be kind of made apparent based on how I described the show. But like, spoiler alert, I'm pretty into Twilight. I conscientiously enjoy Twilight. I feel like that's a lot of the Twilight fandom right now. I think that most of the people who like Twilight are pretty self-aware about it. There's probably still some people out there who are like, Stephenie Meyer can do no wrong, but I have not encountered them to my knowledge. Like, I'm pretty sure people who love Twilight right now are aware of the problems of Twilight. So yeah, spoiler alert, I do enjoy Twilight. Also, spoiler alert for Twilight, if you're one of the rare people who don't know the various plot twists, do you understand how fun it is to tell people things about Twilight that don't know things about Twilight? People lose their minds. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to have a wiki open, like, if you want to keep with the plot, da-da-da. Da-da-da. So a few structural things before I get into it. I'm assuming hour-long episodes, and I'm assuming they're released on a weekly basis. Probably like a Lovecraft Country style release system, where it's just like, okay, you've waited all week for this, and now we're back. A few conceptual things to make you aware of. First of all, the vampires are still going to sparkle. It wasn't that bad, guys. The sparkling's fine. However, one thing we are getting rid of is the vampires are white, and vampire venom gets rid of your melanin, so even if you turn someone who was black or a person of color, they become pale. We're getting rid of that. Why? Because the story also constantly emphasizes that being a vampire makes you beautiful and gets rid of flaws, so like the implications there are really, really gross, and Stephenie Meyer's a weirdo. Getting rid of that. Vampirism does not get rid of melanin. The dark-skinned vampires are still dark-skinned. It's fine. I feel like this is one of the points where people who didn't read the books, even people who watched the movies but didn't read the books, are now going, wait, did she say that? Yeah, she said that. She pretty much said like, oh, you could tell that this character was once a person of color, but now she looks like a China doll. And it's just like, okay. That's very gross, Steph. Of course, doing this sacrifices the idea that vampires are immediately visually distinguishable from humans from a distance, because like there's still the visual dissimilarities that were in the books. Like, I'm keeping the fact that the animal-eating vampires have yellow eyes and the people-eating vampires have red eyes, and when either of them are hungry, their eyes turn black. I'm keeping that. But from a distance, vampires aren't going to be cinematically different, but we're gonna get into the like noticeable differences later on in the video, so just keep a pin in that. We're gonna dig into those vampire phenotypes, I promise. Okay, fourth conceptual thing, the werewolves are gonna be werewolves. And if you haven't read the books, that doesn't sound like a change, but here's the thing. For the first 3 Twilight books, and most of the 4th one, they just called the werewolves werewolves, and then randomly, in the 4th book, out of nowhere, we suddenly have one of the vampires go, oh brother, the werewolves aren't really werewolves, they're just people who transform into wolves. And real werewolves are from Europe, and they died off because we hunted them to near extinction, or extinction, but like, why? So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna call the werewolves werewolves. Saying wolf transformer doesn't flow. Like, I can't think of a convenient way to say wolf transformer. In my fanfiction for Twilight that I write, yeah, I write Twilight fanfiction, but in my Twilight fanfiction, I just say wolf. Like, I avoid saying werewolf because, like, canonically they aren't werewolves, but for the show, we're just calling them werewolves because we can rewrite it. 5th thing, the werewolves who are werewolves are distinct from the Quileute tribe. Why? Because the Quileute tribe is a real tribe that has its own like beliefs and spirituality, and we're not gonna sit here and be like, we've made up some backstory for this tribe, and now they're werewolves. So the idea that we're going with here is that the werewolves come from like a distinct separate tribe that's like smaller than the Quileutes, but that is dedicated to protecting the Quileutes. They live on the same reservation with the Quileutes, but they are a distinct tribe, and we're gonna have that be explicitly stated in like the first episode. Like, we're gonna have a werewolf character or a character who's from the same tribe as the werewolves like actively say, hey, we have a distinct culture from the Quileutes, show some respect. 6th conceptual thing, we're getting rid of the weird creepy stuff that they had in there. So like, you know how wolves can imprint, and you know how wolves can imprint on kids, and you know how their whole thing is like, oh, we're not gonna like be romantic with a little baby until she's an adult, at which point it is open season. Yeah, we're not doing any of that crap. Here's how it's gonna be. Imprinting is romantic when they're peers. When they are not peers, it is completely platonic and only protective. So it's not like I've imprinted on this baby, so I'm gonna marry her one day. It's gonna be I've imprinted on this baby, so I'm going to protect her and support her in her endeavors. If she finds a significant other, I'm going to support and protect both of them, etc. It's completely platonic when they have an age gap. Also, I'm gonna take away the thing where it's like, oh yeah, imprinting is a completely reproductive thing. Or I'm not gonna take away that concept. I'm gonna have someone say, oh yeah, we think that people imprint because it'll enable you to have a next generation of wolves, like it's a genetic thing. We're gonna have that be mentioned, but it's going to be proven wrong because eventually someone who is like homosexual is going to imprint on someone of the same gender, so it's like, oh, so it's not a reproductive thing. We're living a soulmate AU, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Leave your note in the comments on how you would approach the imprinting thing, but I think my way is pretty good. I feel like we've avoided most of the unfortunate implications there. Oh, also, same bullet point, same thing about imprinting. We're also getting rid of the fact that Sam scarred Emily. Like, we're not gonna have it be like, he was in a bad mood one day and he accidentally turned into a wolf and scratched her face and now she's scarred forever. We're taking that out. We don't need domestic violence to be a part of this. We're not even gonna say that Emily doesn't have scars. We're just gonna say that Emily has had scars for years because she was in an accident as a child or something like that. If we wanted to go into like the Sam attacked Emily, let's look at the moral ramifications of that. Let's really like dig into that. We could, but I don't want to, and clearly the books didn't want to, and the movies didn't want to. They still had it in there, like they were still like, yeah, he scarred Emily, but it's fine, we're moving on. No. Either don't have him scar Emily, or let's actually deal with it. But I don't want to deal with it, so he didn't scar Emily. She just has scars, and he's in love with Emily, and it's fine. This series is going to have 3 main characters, and it's going to be one from each species. For a brief period of time, I was like, oh man, I know that Bella's going to be the human, and I know that Leah's going to be the werewolf. Spoiler, Leah's going to be the werewolf who's the main character. But what vampire could I use? What vampire could be a straight man persona against all the other vampires with their unique personalities? The answer is Rosalie. I don't know why I didn't immediately know it was Rosalie, but yeah, so it's going to be 3 main characters, Bella, Rosalie, Leah. They all have their unique conflicts and their unique victories, and it's gonna be great. How are we going to do the perspective thing with the 3 main characters? As soon as I thought of like having 3 main characters, my thought was like, okay, episode 1 is gonna be just called Bella, episode 2 is gonna be called Rosalie, episode 3 is gonna be called Leah, and we're gonna have different episode titles after that. For those first 3 episodes, it's gonna be just from each person's perspective, so we get a long period of time just looking from their perspective. I decided to move away from that idea. It seems weird if the first episode is like Bella ruminating, just like, whoa, what's going on with the Cullens? What's the Cullens deal? I don't understand. What's the mystery here? And then episode 2, it's just Rosalie being like, yeah, we're vampires. Here's my perspective of us being vampires. We are vampires. Like, it seems like it would be a weird tonal shift from mystery to like, yeah, we're vampires. Here you go. So I don't want to do that. I feel like the movie already served up the mysterious atmosphere anyway, so we can kind of just go into this assuming that the audience knows that the Cullens are vampires because it's Twilight. There are ways around it depending on how you pace it, but here's how I'm picturing it. Strap in, guys, because I'm about to give you a beat-by-beat thing of how episode 1 would look in my mind. Opening scene. You have turned on the TV or streaming service, you've pulled up Twilight episode 1. Opening scene is the Cullens hunting as a family. So right off the bat, we know that they're vampires. We've got the entire Cullen family together hunting animals in the woods of Forks, Washington. This way we get to see how they interact with each other when they're alone, and we're gonna get some establishing character moments right off the bat, just like one after the other. We're gonna have Edward about to attack some deer or mountain lion or whatever animal he feels like eating. Maybe a bear. Emmett likes bears, and what's gonna happen is Emmett's gonna steal the prey from him. Emmett's gonna just jump in there and take it. Emmett's all goofy and lighthearted about it, like he's just like, yoink, got your thing. But Edward like gets really cranky and he's just like, Emmett, that was mine. Emmett tries joking around about it with him because he feels like they're having fun, but Edward's kind of sniping back and Emmett's like, wait, are you actually like mad? And here we're establishing that Emmett is a himbo who means no harm and Edward is kind of cranky. That's gonna be Edward's character flaw for a bit, is that he's cranky. And also this way we get to see what the family means when they say that Bella is a good influence on him or has like resulted in a change of his personality, because we're gonna see him be like cranky and kind of curmudgeon-y when he's with his family at first. He still loves them, obviously. The books maybe kind of leave some doubt as to how the family feels about each other, but in the show there will be no doubt they all love each other. Edward loves his family, he's just real cranky. Edward's been hunting, Emmett has stolen his prey, he's all cranky about it. Emmett's like, whoa dude, are you actually upset? And Jasper's kind of standing by, just kind of watching the confrontation take place, gleefully soaking in the drama because that's how he's gonna be in this series. But he's not saying anything, he's just sitting there quietly quietly, like, Edward turns to Jasper in the middle of arguing with Emmett, and he's like, I heard that, indicating that Edward has mind-reading powers, and Jasper has just thought something unflattering. And maybe Emmett asks Jasper to back him up on this because Edward's being unreasonable, and Jasper's just like, nah, I'm good, because Jasper sucks. He's not taking sides, he just enjoys the conflict, he enjoys sipping his tea. Edward is going to accuse Emmett of having no self-control, bit of a character thing here, and kind of allude to Emmett having had accidents with, like, eating humans in the past. And he's not saying it to hurt Emmett's feelings, but it does hurt Emmett's feelings. He's really ashamed of having, like, hurt people in the past. So I'm gonna have them actually give a crap that they've murdered. So Emmett's, like, sad about having killed people, and then Rosalie pops up into frame, and there's gonna be some gravity to that. We're gonna really emphasize cinematically that it's significant that Rosalie's here now for the first time. It's like, whoa, Rosalie, to indicate that she's a main character. She's actively been eating a deer, and she looks up like, hey, will you lay off Emmett, please, Edward? You jerk, probably in a harsher tone of voice than what I'm using right now. Edward will be visibly guilty for hurting Emmett's feelings. We don't want to do like what Breaking Dawn did and have the Cullens actively strategizing how they would attack each other over stuff. Like, we're not gonna make it a weird, do these people even like each other, why are they a family thing? And because they're actually gonna talk like teenagers in this and not like do the weird pseudo-intellectual thing that they do in the books, it's going to come across as, oh, they're teen siblings who are fighting, and not these adults hate each other. And then Esme, the mom, speeds over, and she's got blood on her face from having already eaten, but she still sounds like gentle and maternal as she says like, kids, stop fighting. Why don't you be nice and peaceful like Jasper? Something like that, to that effect. That's the general vibe of what she says. And Jasper's gonna look real smug like, heh, yeah guys, why don't you be like me? He's not gonna say that out loud, smug and annoying about it. We're really establishing early on that Jasper is just the worst, and it's gonna be a fun thing though. It's gonna be fun to just sit there like, ugh, this guy. He's quiet, but he sucks. Now that the drama has died down and there's nothing to spectate, he's gonna just like casually take down a mountain lion really easily, and then he's gonna bring it to Alice, who is just casually waiting for him to bring it over, like she's just hanging out by herself, staring at nothing, dressed really nice. Jasper's gonna bring the mountain lion to her, and she's gonna be like, oh, thank you, and be all cheerful and cute about it. She drinks from the mountain lion very like tidily and neatly. Now she doesn't get any of it on her clothes, and like barely any of it on her face, like just on her lips mostly. Like here we establish, first of all, that Jasper's a really good fighter, really efficient at just like taking stuff down with ease, and second of all, that Alice is very tidy and well-dressed and neat and cheerful. She's meticulous about her appearance, and Jasper and Alice are an item. We've kind of also established that Emmett and Rosalie are an item based on the way she defended him and like his response to her defending him. Now I'm gonna get into what the Cullens are gonna look like, because some of them I've casted. First of all, we're gonna make a change in that Carlisle and Esme aren't going to be ridiculously young. In the books, it's like, oh yeah, Carlisle's 23 and Esme's 26, and like that's when they were changed, so that's how they look physically forever, but when we move to new towns, we still like lie that they're getting older, and like we've been here for years now and it's very clear that he's not getting older, so we gotta move again. We're not gonna have that be a thing at all. If they're 23 and 26 and raising teenagers, that's a huge deal. First of all, that doesn't look like parents, and it would be ludicrous if they tried to lie like, oh yes, I'm now 30. Like, no, you're a baby, you're a little child man. So appearance-wise, I'm picturing Nabia Bay, or I don't know how you pronounce that, as Esme. Nothing in her backstory is really affected or put in a new light by her being brown, to my knowledge. Like, it seems like everything that happened to her in the past could have happened just as much if she was a brown lady. The fact that she's married to Carlisle is a little different now because Carlisle isn't gonna be black, but that just kind of further explains why they were ostracized in the past. Like why they have a history of ostracization. Yeah, that was right, what I just did. The Cullens' cover story in the books is that Rosalie and Jasper were adopted through Esme by being related to her, and Emmett, Edward, and Alice were adopted through Carlisle by being related to him. This is of course a lie, none of them are actually biologically related to each other, but the fact that like Rosalie and Jasper are both blonde kind of feeds the lie, so it's like, oh yeah, I believe that they're twins. For this, they don't actually have to look alike, but I'm going to have Rosalie and Jasper both be black. First of all, to kind of support the Cullens' lie that they're related to Esme, and second of all, because I want to, and third of all, because making Jasper black fixes everything about his character. Or at least not everything, but it fixes the worst thing about his character, which is that he was canonically a Confederate soldier and no one in canon cares. It is stated canonically that he joined the army before he was even legally old enough to join the army. He lied his way in using his powers of persuasion. He really wanted to join that Confederate army. You know what's one easy way to have almost all of that be canon without having to deal with the is Jasper maybe racist thing? Just make Jasper black. He joined before he was old enough to because because he was forced to. He's a black person who was forced to join the Confederate Army, and we can really dig into that well. There's a lot we can do with that. Amity Ravenclaw elf, if you're making it that he wasn't a terrible person, then why did you also emphasize that he's kind of the worst? Well, he's still gonna have a personality, and he's also still gonna be like hawkish and manipulative about using his emotion powers, like his mood control powers, as he is in canon. Not as much so as in the books. He's not gonna be as sadistic as he is in the books. Like, he's still gonna be like a real weirdo, but he's also not going to be a racist one. What we're gonna say for the show is that like part of his thing is like he was forced to fight for a cause that did not care about him or that actively hated him. So as a result, he's become very self-indulging and self-serving. So it's just like, I'm not going to put myself in that kind of position again. He loves his family, so self-serving is also serving them most of the time. It benefits him to fight for his family because he loves his family. And we're gonna see his softer side with Alice, but there is gonna be a fair amount of like, ugh, this guy is just like, he sucks, he's the worst. The imaginary fandom for this imaginary show are gonna really love Jasper. I don't know who would play Jasper. My only like real thought is maybe Najee Jeter, but like leave casting ideas in the comments if you have any of those. At first I was picturing Zendaya as Rosalie because a weird part of my mind was thinking, oh, we can still make her blonde even if she's black. We can have her be light skinned and then she can still be blonde. But then my brain went, why? Why though? So she's Coco Jones now. She's either gonna be Coco Jones or Sierra McLean. I'm picturing Ava Noblezada as Alice, and I'm very attached to the idea. I love imagining that, and I will not hear a single bad word about it. It brings me inordinate joy, and no one is allowed to say that Ava Noblezada should not be Alice Cullen. So saith Amity Ravenclaw elf. I'm kidding, you can say what you want. I don't know who I would cast as Edward, Emmett, or Carlisle, although I'm tempted to cast Jamie Campbell Bower as Carlisle just because I think that Jamie Campbell Bower is pretty and I like him. I know that he played Caius in the movies. I'm sure the imaginary fandom for this imaginary show would have a lot of jokes about the fact that Caius is Carlisle now. Also, I almost want to cast Regé-Jean Page, despite what I said earlier about Esme and Carlisle being different races. Hi, as I'm editing this, I realized I should clarify that the reason I was thinking we should keep Carlisle white for the show is because Carlisle in canon became a doctor centuries ago in England and in America, and he's been able to go through life largely unquestioned, so it seems like that would be complicated if you make him a person of color. So that's my reasoning for that. You can disagree. But Regé-Jean Page is also really pretty, so that's a maybe. But I'm thinking still like Jamie Campbell Bower. So yeah, we start the episode with the scene of the vampires hunting. I want to say that we end the scene with Alice kind of gazing out into space and there's a plane there and that's the plane where Bella is landing because it kind of informs the viewer early on that Alice has precognition, but we can't really do that because if Alice knows already that Bella is significant, then that begs the question, why doesn't Edward know already that Bella is significant? And I don't want Edward to be going into it knowing that Bella is his soulmate because that takes a lot of the fun out of it. Instead, we're gonna have Rosalie kind of complaining, ugh, let's get out of here, it's so noisy. Then we're gonna kind of pan over to an airplane silently in the distance, indicating that vampires have sensitive hearing. After we've panned over to the silent airplane, we're gonna hard cut to the airplane close-up being loud and Bella getting off the airplane. Cutting right from Rosalie to Bella is another way of indicating to the viewer that Rosalie is going to also be a main character along with Bella. By the by, I haven't decided who I would cast for Bella. My immediate thought was either Sophia Carson or Sydney Park, but I have no strong feelings about who plays Bella, so I guess, you know, comments. Bella's section is going to be basically the same as it is in the movie with some tweaks. We're not going to see Billy and Jacob when she gets the truck like we did in the movie. The book didn't do that, and we're going to kind of go the book way. Like in the movie, we're going to have Bella be way more appreciative of the truck than she was in the book. Her interactions with her dad, with Charlie, are going to be friendly but stilted. It's not going to be like in the movie where she's kind of like withdrawn. We're kind of going for the angle that Bella is trying to get along with her father and she cares about like being nice to him and stuff. She's not going to be like, oh yeah, I cut my hair before. Like, it's not gonna be like weird mumble stuff. She's trying to be a good sport about the move. She's not complaining at all or sulking. She's trying to be a good sport. What I'm trying to do with this whole thing is to present things the way Stephenie Meyer pretended they were presented. Like, a lot of times in the book, the characters comment on how selfless Bella is and how she does everything for other people and never thinks about herself or something like that, and she should really advocate for herself more. Whereas what we actually see happen is that she is actually vocally disagreeable and plaintive to the other human characters a lot of the time. It's just the supernatural characters who she's more like lenient with. Not to mention internally judgmental. She spends a lot of time judging the other human characters in the book. So we're getting rid of that. We're gonna present Bella the way the books acted like she was. And then we're gonna actually like deal with the fallout of that. She's not exactly gonna start conversations with Charlie and she's gonna be content to not talk to him. But when he starts the conversation, she's really doing her best. We're gonna see that she's like trying here. The main issue between Bella and Charlie is going to be the fact that she's used to being the one who takes care of herself And he's going into it like, oh, I'm the parent, I'm supposed to take care of you, obviously. She's used to being the one to cook and get groceries and stuff. And Charlie has been doing this for himself for years, so we're not gonna do the thing the books do, where it's like, Charlie can't cook, he doesn't know how to buy groceries. Yes, we're making Charlie self-sufficient. He's been living alone for years. Why wouldn't he know how to take care of himself? Why would he be putting metal in the microwave? Why would you make him this much of a disaster? It makes more narrative sense to contrast him with Renee, Bella's mom. Renee kind of let Bella fend for herself, but Charlie's really trying to like take on an active parenting role. Like why would we have Bella basically have to take care of her mom and then move to Forks where she basically has to take care of her dad? That's silly. She's gonna feel the need to take those roles on herself, and he's gonna kind of want to be like, hey, kid, it's okay to let me do this stuff. Like, even if Charlie is ready to cook a meal, she's like, no, I'm gonna do it. Or even if Charlie has already bought groceries, she's gonna go to the store and buy different groceries. Oh, I got a better deal on mayonnaise, so I bought an entire other jar of mayonnaise. And it's like, we don't need that much mayonnaise, Bella. Charlie takes Bella to school, and the people there are very friendly. It's not that she's like inherently magnetic or that they're like blown away by a new person in the small town. It's just that they're very friendly, like, hey, newcomer, what's up? How you doing? Some of them are still going to have crushes on her though, because like it's not unrealistic that you'd be like, oh, a new person. Hot. We're still gonna have the human friends, Jessica, Mike, Angela, Eric. Like in the movie, we'll see her in gym class, and we're gonna see her being bad at sports, but Rosalie is also in the gymnasium. Rosalie is a senior and Bella's a junior, so what I'm picturing is that like Rosalie is one of those student assistants to the gym class. Do other schools have that? Because my high school had a thing where it's like the upperclassmen would sometimes be gym assistants, and they'd wear a different color gym shirt from everyone else. So Rosalie's one of those. She has a whistle, she has a different color gym shirt, and she's just kind of sitting in the bleachers, reading a magazine, blatantly not helping with the class. She's not paying attention, but when a ball flies towards her head from like the basketball court or whatever, she easily dodges it without looking up. Bella kind of stares at her for a while, intrigued for some reason, and we're gonna have like a light audio cue going on there. The background sounds of the gym will kind of fade out and get muffled, but you'll hear this thing. Maybe it's Bella's heartbeat, maybe a little musical leitmotif, or maybe it's some like little bells or something. Basically, we're gonna have a little audio cue to indicate that Bella is kind of fascinated. She's not literally entranced or hypnotized, but she's like fascinated with the vampire. We're establishing the vampires have something viscerally compelling about them, while also kind of, you know, peppering in some gay stuff for the Twilight fans who discovered they like girls after reading the series when they were 9. One of Bella's human friends is gonna kind of break Bella's concentration or break her out of the staring, just like, hey Bella, what's up? And then the human friend's going to look over, follow Bella's gaze, and see that she was staring at Rosalie. The human friend's gonna kind of go, oh, I know, right? The rest of us are used to it by now. That's why everyone isn't staring at Rosalie and it's just Bella. Like the rest of them have gone through that phase and it's over now. So they're used to the fact that the vampires are like weirdly compelling, but they've kind of, you know, been desensitized to it. We're still gonna have the cafeteria scene, but we're not gonna have them walk in like they did in the movie because I want the movie to still have its unique stuff. So they're gonna already be at the table. They're already gonna be sitting around the table at their cafeteria table together, and Belle's gonna look across the cafeteria and be like, who's that? And Jessica's gonna explain every character in detail. The Cullens. Edward's still gonna stare at Bella kind of intensely from across the cafeteria because he can't read her mind and it's frustrating. And we're gonna briefly cut to the Cullen table to have Rosalie just be kind of like, hey, why are you staring at the new girl? That's weird. Edward's just like, I can't hear her. Alice is gonna check the future, establishing that she can do that, and she's gonna see Edward just like eat Bella, kill the whole class. She's gonna see that thing that could have happened if he hadn't kept control of himself. And Edward's gonna see that in her mind. Like, he's gonna see her check the future. He's gonna be horrified by it. And Alice tells him, hold your breath in biology class, because if he holds his breath, then he won't smell Bella, so he won't need to murder everyone. Didn't make sense that this didn't happen in canon, so this is kind of me trying to fix the fact that Alice should have seen more stuff than she did. Since Edward was just ragging on Emmett earlier this episode, which would be like that morning for the characters, since Edward was just getting on Emmett about his lack of self-control, Rosalie's gonna kind of take the opportunity to needle him like, oh, was someone gonna have an accident of their own? Edward is still horrified from having seen himself that way in Alice's vision. He's gonna get immediately defensive, like, she's probably just a singer. That's why it happened. It's not gonna happen now that I know about it. Now I'm ready, I'm prepared, it's not gonna happen. Side note, in the background of this whole interaction, Emmett is like exaggeratedly pretending to eat an apple or to eat his food, just in a kind of like, oh, look how human I am kind of way. We're never gonna have the camera focus on it, and we're never gonna have a character who's in the foreground of a shot interact with it. Like, it's never gonna be focused on, but it's gonna be a fun background thing. Then we're back to Bella's POV, and that's the biology class. She goes to bio, the only free seat is next to Edward, and he's seeming pretty normal and charming since he had forewarning, so he's holding his breath and like he has enough air to say like, hello, I'm Edward Cullen, how's it going? You must be new. Being very charming and smooth. We're gonna have some kind of like trilling audio effect to indicate that vampire voices sound more beautiful to humans than they do to each other, because like we're not gonna hear it when they're talking to each other. When they're talking to each other, they sound normal. But when Edward talks to Bella, there's gonna be like a slight, not really warping, just kind of concurrent with his voice. There's going to be a faint leitmotif or bell or something like that. Oh, beautiful. His voice is like music, like a beautiful song. And Bella just kind of responds. She's kind of entranced by him, but they talk. It's smooth. It's fine. But then Bella asks, what unit are we on? And at this point, Edward is out of air, so he has to inhale. And when he inhales, he smells Bella's scent. And that's when he kind of goes like he was in canon, where he's just like, and like ducking away, covering his mouth and nose as if she smells horrible. He doesn't speak, he just points to the board which says cell division or cellular mitosis to answer her question. So yeah, he holds his breath for the entire rest of class, and he feels really bad about himself. Man, maybe my control isn't as good as I thought. I thought that I could handle it, but I can't. Pride being his downfall. He thought that he was better than Emmett, but it turns out that it just, you know, it's all a matter of whatever. This time it wasn't like, oh, I smelled the human girl by surprise and I barely made it out with my control. This time it was like, oh, I had forewarning. I chose to breathe because I thought I could handle it. Turns out that I can't. I gotta go. So we're actually building on a personal flaw of Edward's. Is like he's got a pride problem. Your pride'll be the death of us all. Beware, it goeth before the fall. Another departure from canon that I've already done is the fact that the Cullens have hunted recently when Bella shows up. Because in the books, Edward's eyes were black when he met Bella, and that was part of the problem, is that he was especially hungry when he smelled her. But here it's gonna be, no, he wasn't that hungry. She just smells really good. That's a change I'm comfortable with making, although it does harm the fact that Bella's gonna observe that his eyes have changed color, but she can observe that later, it's fine. We follow Bella for a bit, give her some at-home time with Charlie to build up their conflict that I already talked about. The next day at school, Edward isn't there, and that's weird. Day after that, Edward isn't there, and that's still weird. Third day, he isn't there. Bella goes to Rosalie in gym class. Well, first, she kind of stares at Rosalie again, and then like her concentration is broken. Instead of by a friend, this time it's by someone on one of the basketball courts, skins his knee, and he's bleeding. Rosalie, who has not been paying attention to anything else, suddenly kind of just like, not urgently, but she kind of gets up and leaves the room, and Bella follows her. She follows her into the bathroom, and Rosalie is just kind of grooming in the mirror, first of all because vampires can't pee, and second of all because Rosalie is definitely someone who goes to the bathroom just to kind of groom in the mirror. Bella goes, hey, sorry to pry, but is Edward okay? He's in my biology class, and then she kind of trails off because she's suddenly just transfixed by Rosalie's beauty. And she's done this with Edward before too. It's not just a Rosalie thing, but she is like fascinated by Rosalie's beauty. She stares at Rosalie, and Rosalie looks back with startling yellow eyes. Golden. Now we're back to the vampire phenotypes thing, because one thing that I want to be the case is that while vampires only sparkle in direct sunlight, and like I said, we're keeping the sparkling, I want to kind of build on the diamond thing. Maybe even if they're not in direct sunlight, if it's just like artificial light, or if the light is especially bright that isn't sunlight, there's still a visual quality that is mesmerizing. Vampires have skin like diamonds. I want, no matter how light-skinned or dark-skinned the vampire is, I want their skin to like kind of swim with color in a mesmerizing way that isn't blatantly supernatural enough to draw shock or notice. So just kind of like a subtle quality about their skin. You don't see it if you're from a distance, but they're under like the harsh bathroom light and standing right next to Rosalie, it's kind of just like, whoa. That's cool. I don't know how to well describe what I'm visualizing, but work with me here. Bella stammers for a few seconds noticing this, but then she kind of gets her bearings again, and she's just like, sorry, I mean, like, Edward's my lab partner. I was wondering if he's okay. He hasn't been in class for a few days. Rosalie's just like, lucky you. We get that audio quality about her voice again because it's a vampire talking to a human. Bella goes, huh? What do you mean? Rosalie's like, if I had 3 days away from Edward, I wouldn't complain. Bella asks, is he sick? Rosalie just kind of keeps dodging the question, and it's fine. Now we've switched to Rosalie's POV. She goes back to the Cullen house like, the Swan girl's asking questions. You, Edward, get your brittle behind to school. You're raising suspicions, and here we're going to introduce the audience to the fact that if vampires are found out as vampires, or like if they raise too much suspicion from humans, they'll be killed by the Volturi. We'll also like really hammer in the fact that it's crucial that Edward keep his control around Bella, or else he will kill her, and he won't mean to, it'll just kind of happen. Then we'll lighten the mood by hard cutting to Edward in biology class the next day. He's trying to gloss over everything with Bella, and Bella's just not having it, like, no, that was still weird. You were holding your nose and you were acting weird, and then you were gone for days. What's up? I'm tempted to say that I want Edward to be as bad a liar as he is in canon, because that's really funny. You've been alive for 100 years, man. How are you like this? He could easily just be like, oh yeah, I had a nosebleed and then I was sick, so that's what happened. But I kind of wanted to be badly dodging the question, and Bella's just be like, no, that's not true. We followed the actual plot of Twilight for a bit, them kind of bantering and Edward trying to learn about Bella, Bella trying to learn about Edward. Both of them are being weirdly obstructive about the whole thing. One day it snows. At first when I was writing this, I thought that the Cullens had a snowball fight on that day in the book, but now I've realized that I was thinking of two different incidents, one of which being Bella's friends had a snowball fight, and the other of which being Emmett shook snow out of his hair onto the others at the cafeteria table. So I was conflating those two and thinking that the Cullens had a snowball fight that day, but in my show, the Cullens had a snowball fight that day. It's the end of the school day on the day that it has snowed, and the Cullens are in the parking lot, they're throwing snowballs at each other. And there's some other students throwing snowballs at each other too, far away, but the Cullens are doing it amongst themselves. Emmett is throwing snowballs, but then he notices that Rosalie is kind of sulking alone, staring off at the humans, and Emmett kind of goes, "Hey babe, what's wrong?" Rosalie is gonna say something like, "I miss having all that potential." And it's a serious line in universe, but like in the imaginary fandom of this imaginary show, that's gonna be a gif that's used for a lot of things. Just like, "Oh, I miss having that much potential." It's gonna be a meme. Rosalie goes, "Pretending to be like them," and then trails off. We've introduced now that Rosalie's conflict is that she doesn't like being a vampire and she's trying to find meaning in her immortal life. That's gonna be a major thread for her. Then Rosalie and Bella are gonna make eye contact to establish, first of all, once again, the connection between the main characters, and second of all, that Bella knows that the Cullens are across the parking lot, because then Tyler's van comes skidding on the ice, and it almost crushes Bella, but then Edward runs across the parking lot vampire speed and saves Bella from the van. Before this happens, Alice is gonna gasp because she sees it like a second before it happens, and Jasper just goes like, "What is it? What's wrong?" But then the van comes skidding, Edward saves Bella, they make eye contact. That's the final shot of the episode. The siblings stare on in horror, Edward and Bella stare at each other, like, "Whoa, what was that?" Cut to black, credits. That's the end of the first episode, and you may notice that I haven't mentioned Leah yet, and that's because her plot isn't really connected to Bella's and Rosalie's plot, but she will be there. She's just kind of doing her own thing right now. I'm thinking it's only gonna cut to her about 3 times in the first episode, and it's mostly going to establish who she is, who her family is, who her friends are, if her friends are a major part of this, and the fact that she and Sam are in a loving relationship. We're really gonna emphasize how loving and wholesome and pure their relationship is, because I wanna hurt the audience. She's engaged to Sam Yulee, but he's being a little mysterious all of a sudden. He's being different. What's up with Sam? At this point, Sam has become a wolf, but right now he's the only one, and him and Leah are still together. This might not be completely compliant with the actual timeline of the books of Twilight, but that's what I'm going with. I'm still doing it like this. At some point, Leah will casually mention that her cousin Emily is planning on visiting soon, and if you've read the books, that's you going, "Oh no, Leah." But if you haven't read the books or seen the movies, then you're just thinking, "Oh, she's casually mentioning that," and that's just like her saying a girlfriendy thing so that we can see that Sam isn't paying attention. Like, we can see Sam going, "Huh? Yeah? Okay." Like, you think that's the point, is that he's not paying attention, but really the point is that Emily's coming, and like that's foreshadowing for Emily showing up to meet the fiance of her best friend. The first Leah scene establishes Leah and her family. Second Leah scene establishes that Sam is being mysterious. Third Leah scene, though, is really gonna show that Leah and Sam have a beautiful, sweet relationship. The last Leah scene will be right before the snow scene. We're gonna see like Leah and Sam together, and then Sam's gonna be like, "Okay, I gotta go outside for a minute." And then he leaves, he goes outside, and then he transforms into a wolf, and the audience goes, "Whoa!" Then it cuts to the snow day. So that's the first episode. I could give you a play-by-play of the other episodes, but like that would make this video unbearably long. Basically, for the rest of the first season, Bella's point of view follows roughly the plot of Twilight, with little changes for consistency and character powers making sense, and we're still gonna have Jasper initially want to deal with the Bella situation though. Like, we're still gonna have Jasper be like, "Hey, we can't have this human knowing about us," because I kind of love that. So we are still gonna have Jasper casually be like, "I think we maybe have to kill her." And Alice is still gonna be the one like, "No, she's gonna be my friend in the future, so we can't kill her." Or maybe actually we're gonna have Alice just say, "No, we can't kill her because she's a human and she deserves to live," instead of making it a selfish thing. I've grown desensitized to like the weird selfishness of the Cullens. From Rosalie's point of view, we're gonna deal with her contemplation of what she's gonna do with the rest of her eternal life and her resentment for being a vampire. For this season, we're gonna keep it fairly light though. Like, Emmett's gonna suggest maybe she start babysitting, a 1-episode story arc of Rosalie taking up babysitting, and we see her struggle with it, but she also enjoys it because she loves kids. From Leah's point of view, we're gonna deal with the mystery of what's going on with Sam, and we're gonna deal with Sam imprinting on Emily. Towards the end of the season, Emily's gonna make her visit, Sam's gonna see her, and he's gonna fall immediately in love with her, and it's gonna be like, "I'm sorry, Leah, I kind of just don't feel anything for you anymore. We kind of have to call off the engagement." Leah's gonna be devastated. That's not gonna be her state at the very end of the season though. I don't want the ending shots to be like, "Oh yeah, Bella's at prom with Edward, and Rosalie's doing fine with whatever she's doing at prom with Emmett." And Leah is heartbroken because her fiance has dropped her and says like, oh no, we don't want to do that. So I want to end on a positive note for Leah. Maybe she's gotten a scholarship to the college she wants. Something good happens in her life to end off the season, because I don't want her to end off at a terribly low note. Although she will be really sad about Sam, and that degree of angst is really gonna pay off next season when she's taking no crabs, and we're all gonna be really happy for her in the imaginary fandom of this imaginary show. We're really gonna dig into her sadness, because I feel like Stephenie Meyer was pretty dismissive of it, where it's just like, yeah, Leah has suffered way too much, and we're gonna just pile more onto her, and we're never going to satisfactorily address it. And it's just like, her? Why? Season 2 is a little tougher because we gotta think of something for Leah to be doing in between the beginning of the season and finding out that she's a werewolf. I'm thinking that's mostly gonna be mystery stuff like what's going on with Sam and the gang that he seems to be forming. About 3/4 of the way through the season, she's going to phase into a wolf for the first time, and her dad's gonna die of a heart attack seeing it. I'm thinking before Leah turns, she will be 1, working towards some personal goal, maybe school related, maybe whatever career she wants to have. 2, trying to figure out why Sam seems like he's forming a gang and what's going on with that. And 3, trying to protect Seth from that gang. That's really the only reason she cares about the gang, is because the gang seems to be interested in Seth. Sam and the pack think, oh yeah, Seth is a Clearwater male, so he's probably going to turn into a wolf sometime soon. So they're keeping an eye on Seth. Leah sees that they're scoping out her brother, and she's just like, hey, stop. Definitely don't. Why is my ex-fiance, who just dropped me so indifferently, suddenly scoping out my brother for his weird gang? Bella's actions in New Moon aren't exactly action-packed. Her plot is going to not be as emphasized as Leah's plot in season 2. Rosalie doesn't really have many canonical actions in New Moon at all, except that she tells Edward that Alice saw Bella jump off a cliff. We're gonna invent some stuff for Rosalie to do, but I don't know what they are right now. Leah is going to cross paths with Bella because Harry, her dad, and Bella's dad's friend, is going to send her over to the Swan house like, hey, bring this stuff over to Charlie and Bella. And Leah's gonna be like, okay, and she's gonna cross paths with Bella. And at this point, Bella is friends with Jacob, and Jacob has withdrawn from Bella because he's phased into a wolf and he's with Sam now. Bella's in that period of time where she's like, what happened to Jacob? Why is he gone? So Bella's gonna ask Leah, hey, you're from La Push Reservation. Do you know what's going on with Jacob? Like, is he sick or something? What's going on? Why is he missing? Is it Sam? Jacob mentioned Sam. Is Sam the reason why he's not picking up my calls? And now Leah's interest is piqued, and she's like, what, you think Sam got to him? So she's gonna investigate Jacob next. When Leah does eventually phase into a wolf, her dad will be the only one to see it, and there will be some in-story reason that none of the other wolves are in their wolf form at the time, so no one's gonna hear her thoughts. She has to turn back into a human. She has to figure out how to turn back into a human in order to call the ambulance for her dad, who has had a heart attack. So at that point, she has phased into a wolf, and no one knows that she has phased into a wolf. However, after the fact, they do know that Harry has had a heart attack, and the house looks like it was destroyed by a wolf. So Sam's pack is gonna kind of go up to the clear waters while they're mourning Harry, and they're gonna be like, hey Seth, you gotta come with us. And Leah's just gonna be like, stay away from my brother, don't, you stay away from my brother right now. And the pack is gonna be dismissive, like, Leah, you don't understand, you don't get it, this is beyond your understanding, we have to take Seth for his own good, or something like that. And Leah's gonna be like, I said, stay away from my brother! And she's gonna turn into a wolf, and then they're gonna be like, whoa, a girl wolf, we didn't know that was a thing. And while I have been kind of ignoring the Bella plotline for a while, it is important to me that you know that Jane and Alec of the Volturi, in my mind, are played by McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard. I'm not married to the idea, but that's how I'm picturing them right now, because McKenna Grace was really good in The Bad Seed 2018, and Finn Wolfhard was really good in It and The Turning. Of course, there remains the problem that if we get young actors, then they're probably gonna grow up in between appearances, and vampires aren't supposed to grow older. That's just kind of a confounding factor, though, for every vampire piece of media, is that the actors get older and the characters don't. So also with regards to the Bella plotline, hallucination Edward isn't going to be a literal hallucination. It's not going to be literally I see and hear Edward when I'm in danger. It's just going to be when I put myself in danger, I can really feel that Edward cares about me and wants me to be okay. And then she's going to verbally explain that. It's just being shown to the audience as a visual and audio representation of the fact that she feels Edward's presence. So she's not literally hallucinating, because that came out of nowhere and never went anywhere, and that would be weird. Also, the audience will not see Edward after he leaves. Even when it cuts to Rosalie's point of view in the Cullen house, Edward isn't there. He's gone off by himself for a period of time. Maybe he occasionally does go to the Cullen house, but we, the audience, don't see it. First time we see Edward again is going to be when Rosalie inadvertently tells him that Alice has seen Bella jump off a cliff. Of course, Rosalie doesn't tell him this verbally, she's just accidentally thinking about it in his presence. Haven't yet decided if if that's like, if she knows he's there or if he's just like approaching the house and he hears her thinking about it. But either way, that's when we first see Edward, and that's a huge moment, like, Edward's back! I think we're also gonna have a scene of Alice going, Bella keeps emailing me, it's breaking my heart not to email her back and like not respond because Edward doesn't want us to respond to her. And Rosalie's gonna say something like, okay, either respond to Bella because Edward isn't the boss of you, or delete your emails so that you don't torture yourself ignoring Bella. Alice is going to delete her email account right when Bella sends an email saying that Jacob is a werewolf, so they miss out on that information. Season 3 is Eclipse, and in Eclipse, we're changing the weird forced kiss from Jacob. Like, we're not gonna have it be, oh, Jacob just like grabs Bella, kisses her, she punches him in the face, he laughs. We're not gonna have that happen. He kisses Bella and he thinks that it's like a grand display of love or something, and when she punches him and breaks her hand on his face and it is indicated to him that she didn't want him to kiss her, he's gonna be super sorry and like apologetic and not defensive in the slightest, not smug in the slightest. That's all I'm saying about season 3. Season 4 will be Breaking Dawn, and season 4 is the point at which Rosalie and Bella and Leah will really be on the same page. Their motivations are gonna be different than they were in the books, but Rosalie and Bella and Leah are gonna be on the same page in season 4, and that's gonna be really the time when it's like, ooh, the kids are together. Kind of like when Zuko joined Aang in The Last Airbender. It's just gonna be like, whoa, they're united now. I've been content with following their separate plot lines, but now they're all together. Also, we're gonna make Leah the alpha of the separate pack from Sam's instead of Jacob, because the reason that Jacob became the alpha of a separate pack was like, he has the superior genetics, and that's gross. So we're not doing that. We're gonna have it be a Mjolnir situation where it's like, whoever proves themselves worthy can be alpha, and Leah proves herself worthy, so she's the alpha. We still have the pregnancy with the half-vampire kid, and Bella's still gonna name the baby Renesmee. It's not that bad, guys. The name is fine. I don't know why everyone's so mad about the name Renesmee. Like, it's not a normal name, but it's not horrendous. It's like, yeah, Renesmee, it's fine. Whatever, Renesmee. But most people are still gonna call her Nessie. And the Volturi is still gonna come because they're still gonna think she's an immortal child. And they're still gonna have the whole trial thing, but instead of the ending being like, oh, never mind, bye, okay, whatever, it's gonna actually, like, lead into season 5 in some way. Like, it's gonna be like, okay, now we have to study half vampires in a very real way. Maybe they have to take Renesmee for checkups at the Volturi or something like that. The end of season 4 is going to lead into season 5 where we're doing more stuff with the vampires. Like I said in the other video, how many seasons can we get out of it? Can we expand? I'm gonna expand. Fortunately, child actors grow up fast in regular life, so like between seasons, the child actor is gonna get older and it'll seem like it's, oh, Renesmee grows at an accelerated rate. It's only been a week. It hasn't been the year it's been between seasons. Overall, the Volturi isn't gonna be so much villains as like vampires who have, first of all, who are trying to protect the vampires, often at the expense of humans, and second of all, they've been vampires for long enough that their morals have kind of declined. Humans taste so good and they taste way better than animals, and you're stronger when you eat humans than you eat animals, so like it's easier to indulge that part of yourself than to fight it and live the veggie vamp lifestyle. They're trying to keep vampires alive through misguided means. They're keeping vampires from slaughtering humans. If you kill conspicuously, they will kill you because you're gonna out their secret. They have a good side to them. They also are comfortable with eating humans is the thing. They're creepy, but they're not altogether corrupt and selfish like they are in the books. The fact that more and more wolves keep phasing as vampires are around them, and the wolves thing is that they want to protect humans, that's gonna lead to maybe a conflict between the wolves and the Volturi in season 5 or 6, I'm thinking. Maybe Leah's gonna put some pressure on Rosalie and Bella, like, hey, we're friends, but you gotta pick a side. Are you gonna stand with these people-eating vampires who are murdering people, or are you gonna stand with the wolves who want to protect people? That can be a thing where it's like, no, we don't wanna have to fight the Volturi, and a lot of our friends eat people. But I'm gonna stop it there, lest I get longer-winded or longer-winded. That's about all I've got for you guys today. Thank you for watching. Please leave your comments on what you think of my idea for an adaptation and what you would change, what you think would be a cool thing to have in a Twilight adaptation. Sing songs, drink water, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, eat celery. I've made it clear on this channel that I enjoy celery, and have a great day. You're the king of sinful thoughts. Your heart's a dead tomato splot with moldy purple spots, Mr. Grinch.